Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotas Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotas.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. We pick off with the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Central Bank is saying that it's going to boost FX supply to banks in order to get them to end users. The Central Bank, of course, I mean, as you try to increase supply of FX, you also try to manage what's out there. They've been, Central Bank has reiterated, this is an article in This Day newspaper, that, look, the black market should not be the reference rates for the nation. Although, if you've noticed in the last few days, the Naira has depreciated to about 530, 535. In fact, even I think Bookie FX is saying 540 now. Summer period, lots of folks traveling, demand has been pushed forward, but it's saying that, look, as far as legitimate demand is concerned, you should go to the banks and there's going to be an FX injection. Although if you go to the banks, the legitimate transactions that they're referring to, personal travel allowance, business travel allowance, and then medics, school fees and so on. Outside of that, it's a challenge getting FX. So they've also said, interesting enough, in the article also says that they've spoken to ministries, departments, and agencies to desist from receiving payments in USD. The customs was mentioned, Federal Airports, FAN, Airports Authority was also mentioned, some airlines as well. So, I guess they're doing their best to try to manage the foreign exchange that's circulating right now. But again, we talked about this. I think it was yesterday. Wasn't it yesterday? I think it was yesterday where we talked about the need. It was yesterday. We talked about the need for the nation to be able to just export more quality goods. Yeah, when Rufai brought that PlayStation 4 example and how much Japan is making just from a video game. So as long as we continue to have these conversations around foreign exchange, we just need to emphasize on the fiscal side that more needs to be done to diversify Nigeria's exports, quality goods, in order to bring more foreign exchange into the country that the central bank can then manage. Until then, we'll keep having headlines like this. We move to food. Nairametrics carried out a food survey. No surprise here. Doctors talked about this a lot of times. Between August and September, they noticed a rise in the number of items. Cooking oil, cooking gas, spaghetti, gari, beans, rice. There's seasonal reasons are being pointed to as affecting supply of some of these items, but then also there also is FX as well. The fact that it's affecting, costs infecting importation, which is filtering its way down, pass-through effects to these food items. Remember, food inflation is at the 20% level. That's still very, very elevated. And until we can address routes to markets, until we can address issues affecting farmers with insecurity, we're still going to see high prices. And this is September. Yeah, this is September. In fact, no, September. This is September. We're going towards the end of the year. There will, of course, be increased demand for. In fact, we'll see how festivities turn out. So you should expect food prices to possibly remain elevated as we go towards the end of the year, parties and so. If I have to, perhaps the Nigerians will be having less parties this year because of prices. From there, we go to PROSPA. No, sorry, customs. We go to customs. I just mentioned customs a few minutes ago, and that the central bank was, talking to customs officials and other MDAs about not accepting FX. Customs, on their part, saying we should expect more scanners to the ports this month. And they're saying they want to do that in order to check smuggling. Rufai, in particular, even Tundu, you've both mentioned the need for more technology at the ports in order to check smuggling, the borders. The governor of Kaduna has mentioned it in order to fight terrorism and so on and so forth. So customs, I think Zona Officer Modupe Aremu was the individual that said that they will be getting more tech, more scanners at the ports. And then finally, still on tech, PROSPA, another Nigerian company, making news with respect to a fundraise. This is pre-seed funding of $3.8 million for PROSPA. They are a digital bank that target SMEs. We've got, 45 million micro businesses in Nigeria. A lot of them need funding. And so PROSPA is trying to fit into that gap. They were in the Y Combinator December 2020 batch, and so they've now $3.8 million is going to support them in terms of trying to scale and get access to SMEs in Nigeria. So again, the best news we seem to be getting from the Africa's largest economy in the tech space. That's our African business update.
All right, Rosus, thank you so much. Okay.
Well, very quickly, let's start with the ports. I don't think that the main problem at the ports is about scanners, even if I agree with the fact that the deployment of technology in line with best practices elsewhere would help to ensure efficiency. Now, the issue at the ports, Customs says is targeting Apapa ports, Tinkan, and on airports, and that if more scanners are deployed, then there will be, some great achievement in terms of revenue generation. The problem is not revenue. The problem is basically efficiency at the ports. And it's not only the customs that is responsible for that. Under the Jonathan administration, we had a task force, for the ports, which was led by the then coordinating minister of the economy, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and Professor Moyen. Professor Moyen was the specific head of the task force. And the objective at the time was to ensure turnaround time at the major ports in Nigeria. And part of the task was to reduce red tape, to reduce the multiplicity of agencies at the port. Now, that was achieved for a period, but we are back to that past. At the moment, under the Buhari administration, we've been told that more revenue has been generated. But you have to measure that revenue generation in terms of the efficiency of these ports. What is the turnaround time? And why is it that we have problems with parking, we have problems with all kinds of agencies at the ports? So I think that the customs, Nigerian customs, must think beyond revenue. And there must be a strategy in place to see how we can reinvent, what was done previously when the turnaround time, I think, was at the time a limit of 48 hours. It worked for a while, but like everything in Nigeria, every measure that works, people will just game the system and they will make sure that it doesn't work again. That, for me, is the big issue. Now, as regards the price of spaghetti, cooking gas, beans, and other items in the market, we've always said it here, that there is a disconnect between statistics and the reality that we face in the markets. Ordinary people like us, when we go to Sunday market, what we face with the cost of food items. And the problem that has been identified here is with regard to forest scarcity. I think it's a shame. It's embarrassing that Nigeria will be talking about the importation of staple foods. It's a shame that we import groundnut oil, or that anybody will suggest that palm oil, the price of palm oil has gone up because Nigeria is importing palm oil and there is a forest scarcity. This same country where Malaysia came, many decades ago to come and take, a sample of palm kernel in Nigeria to be able to develop their own country. Now we import from other countries. And that is why the focus on agriculture by government is important, and why we should not be using scarce forests to buy things that we can easily produce in Nigeria here. They will tell you that you said the food inflation is in the 20% range. Yes, 23.3%. That should not be the case. This is a blessed country. We have good flora and fauna. So we can't even produce food to feed ourselves. Although part of the objectives of government is to address food sufficiency. Yeah. And we have been told at the time that food sufficiency had been achieved. Although the president did well by turning adrift that man called, what's his name again?
No. Have you already forgotten?
Who could not produce the results. Well, why should we remember him? Because he didn't make any significant
Well, he's not memorable, is he?
And as for the central bank, talking about providing forex and saying that dealings with the black market is illicit, is illegal, and that the people who go to the black market are people who are engaged in illegal activities. My question is that same old question. What structures do we have in place to ensure that the banks who have taken over forex supply from the BDCs would ensure that they follow due protocols and guidelines given by the CBN, beyond, the protestations of good faith that we've been getting from the bankers committee. And is it true, really, as the CBN is now arguing in the report in this day today, that all MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies of government should not conduct transactions in dollars, which is one of the things we've been talking about here. The Nigerian system itself does not believe in the Naira. When athletes do well, either in the main Olympics or in Paralympics, they are compensated in dollars. And we've been saying it, Nigeria must have confidence in its own currency. Rents, there are many buildings in this country.
Well, the head of Airpeace gave 20 million naira.
Well, no, I'm not attacking Onyema. He's a private person. If he likes, he can give money out in yen or in any other, or even in the, whatever currency. But the Nigerian government should demonstrate confidence in the Naira. So it's not enough to say landlords should not quote in dollars. Many landlords will not take money from you if you bring Naira. So how do we achieve that objective of building confidence in the Naira and making the Naira a great store of value and a main means of exchange in the Nigerian environment?
So for me, the fact is that we deceive ourselves too much in this country. I can't say that enough. In fact, I'm tired of using the word hypocrisy on national TV because it's beginning to...
No, this is not national TV. International TV, please.
So because it's beginning to sound
international.
like... I'm beginning to feel like I'm stupid sometimes. You see, we can't crack anything. We can't do anything. Why? Because we're not ready to do anything. Nigeria has 80 million hectares of arable land, Rotus, 80 million hectares, and we can't farm the land. And we used to do it before. Nigeria used to churn out 1/3 of all the tomatoes eaten in the West African sub-region in the 60s. But today we can't do that. We can't even plant. Crop production, rubbish. All the numbers, rubbish. We're deceiving ourselves and we're talking about forex. How are we not going to have forex problems? When there are no factories to process palm oil or palm kernel into products, where cost of setting up a business is difficult and we know that, and there's multiple taxation. In that same country, where you go out to have a meal in Lagos, you pay 5% consumption tax and 7.5% VAT rate. So you are paying 12.5% just for having a meal. And there are other forms of multiple taxation. And we are saying how would we have a forex problem? I mean, Foxconn, contract manufacturer, one of the biggest contract manufacturers in the world, made 176 billion in revenue. 176 billion. Foxconn employs 3.5 million people on one production line. When are we going to have companies like that and support them in this country? We know the solution to these forex problems. Just produce. Just produce and forex will come to the country.
That's it.
So I sound stupid every morning coming to say one thing over and over again. These folks are not listening. We got to go.
Well, I wanted to say so much, but unfortunately, there's no time. Got to go on a short break, Rotus. Thank you very much for your time. And then we'll be back with more on business updates. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, joining us from London is Michael Wilson with Global Business Updates. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. So end of a choppy week, really. Some political brightness, though, right at the end of it. High-level discussion between President Biden and the President of China, talking a bit about politics. I'll give you more details of that as I get down in my report about it. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index about 2%. Chinese video game stocks have actually jumped back. They fell yesterday because there'd been a report in the South China Morning Post reporting that Chinese government was suspending approvals for new online games. This turned out to be incorrect. And after the market, it corrected what it had actually said. It just said the regulators will slow the approvals process. That actually means something, apparently. China's rumoured ambitions in Afghanistan are overstated and unrealistic. That's according to economists. It's made clear, China's made clear of its approach approval of the Taliban. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do business with them, though. That's what China's saying, even though Afghanistan's mineral wealth is absolutely staggering. Trillions of dollars worth of untapped minerals and so on within the country, but lack of infrastructure means that it would take a long time to get them out. So that's what China's saying over the trading day. As far as the US is concerned, stock futures very little changed after those drops yesterday. During regular trading, the Dow shed about 150 points. This is very, very small stuff these days. Better than expected weekly jobless claims, but only just. Biden was talking to Xi Jinping to try to break the impasse. This is the political thing I've been talking about. There were top-level meetings between officials. It didn't get anywhere. So the two leaders decided to talk. They talked very, very broadly about trade and so on. Apparently, no big details about it, but at least they're talking. This is only the second big phone call to take place, or officially to take place between them. And finally, I'll just bring you to, as far as the United States is concerned, an FT survey, Financial Times survey, saying that the US will have to raise interest rates by at least 0.25% in 2022. The Fed had penciled in 2023 for that, really. So that's bringing forward things very, very slightly. Ford is going to restructure, and it's shuttering most of its plants in India. That'll cost them about £2 billion. They're under the cosh of a new CEO who assumed his position in October. His Ford turnaround is actually shuttering those kind of manufacturing facilities and putting to more profitably and better position, as he puts it, the car maker for costly electronic and autonomous vehicles. UK and the GDP figures out about an hour ago. Recovery's ground to a halt, basically 0.1% increase, and the whole economy is still 2.1% smaller than it was actually before the pandemic. Rail companies are saying it's about time you got back on the train, and unless workers actually get back to work, unless commuting starts, just 33%, a third of passengers are back on the railways, and that just means lots more traffic congestion if indeed people decide to go back to work in the first place. Staying with the UK, EasyJet's rejected a bid, not confirmed by either company, but from Wizz Air. Instead, what EasyJet's going to do is go for a rights issue. In other words, you possess a certain amount of shares, you can buy some more, depending on how many shares you've got, at a reduced price. That's how it's going to raise its cash. It's actually, as far as EasyJet's concerned, it's actually a vote of confidence in where the airline industry is going in the future when the pandemic finally finishes, whenever that may be. Let me take you to oil. Partially recovers from its overnight losses. Gold remains very, very, punch drunk, I think is the way of looking at it. It doesn't really know which way to go. The big star is uranium, reaching its highest level since 2014, and bets on clean energy and economic growth are pushing the value of that up. And that is your global view this Friday.
Well, Michael, let's start with the ECB, the European Central Bank. President Lagarde is saying that the lady is not for tapering. A play on Margaret Thatcher's "the lady is not for turning." And the ECB is telling us that what was decided is about recalibration, not necessarily tapering. And there's a lot of optimism on the part of ECB. But the issue is that the ECB seems to have taken a different position from, say, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the Bank of New Zealand, the Bank of Canada, which have noticed that there may be some form of tapering at some point, within the next few months. So do you think that the optimism of the ECB is misplaced, or it is in line with the market expectations? And what are we likely to expect? Because it's based basically on the third wave. What if there is a third wave? What if, the recovery that decision is based on turns 360 degrees? And then in El Salvador, President Bukele, 40-year-old President Bukele, has taken charge of trying to protect the Chivo, the digital wallet. He's even saying that, any complaints, any observations should be sent directly to his Twitter account. And we're told that, people should shut down and reload the app. It's, Bukele just, gambling with his introduction of Bitcoin as a national currency. Although there are speculations that cryptocurrency may even do better before the end of the year, and it will become bullish. I know you will say you don't believe in that because it's too volatile. But don't let me anticipate your thoughts, since I'm not a mind reader.
Yeah, let's do El Salvador first of all. I can't take it seriously, to be honest. I mean, what they've tried to do is make cryptos an official currency there, and I mean, it just looks like showbiz to me. I've got no idea what the reality of it is. I do know, because we were talking about this earlier in the week, that the majority of the population does have no access to digital currency at all, and therefore any kind of playing around with it is simply all talk, basically. As far as getting the country back to out of its problems and into growth again, I don't see it at all, quite honestly. I just think it's a gimmick. As far as the ECB is concerned, very, very different from the Fed, very, very different from a lot of central banks. They messed around with language yesterday. You're quite right. They did. It wasn't tapering. It was just like it wasn't quite tampering, and it wasn't quite resetting. It was something, sort of slightly along the lines of that. The bottom line is that what the ECB is really worried about is the fact that there are so many different. Well, let me put it. This is what they ought to be worried about. I don't have any internal views from them about what they're worried about. What they ought to be worried about is the differing economies that are in the EU, different stages of economic development, huge debts in some. We've talked about Italy trying to resurrect itself with Draghi and so on. We've also talked about Germany undergoing elections. Angela Merkel is going. Who's going to succeed her? What will that mean for the German economy? I think that what the ECB is trying to do is to come up with some sort of language that says, look, as far as we're concerned, the Pandemic Recovery Fund will continue until it's not needed anymore. We will obviously go along with tapering, but they've just pushed that date out very slightly further than everybody else. It's a game that central banks play. I was puzzling about it until late last night, having seen the press conference and talked about it with Reuters yesterday afternoon. I have to say, I don't really understand what they're doing. I think that this is the problem that a central bank over so many disparate economies actually has. I'm sorry, I wish I could answer your question. I can't. I just feel as though they're kicking the can further down the road than other central banks, which is saying that if push comes to shove and we can't look through inflation, then we'll have to tighten. At the moment, the ECB is not saying that, even though they're witnessing higher inflation, as we know.
All right, Michael, real quickly, two questions. Number one will be, there's a new investment in the rail sector. It's called Lumo or something. Who is investing in rail when people are not taking the rail any longer because of COVID-19 and all of that? And secondly, who is betting on uranium? I thought we were talking about clean energy.
Okay, so clean energy, nuclear energy, that's what people are betting on. So that's that one. That's why the price is going up. So many people are looking. It's not about fossil fuels. It's about uranium and it's about nuclear power. So that's why the price is going up. Did you say rail industry? Yeah,
there's a new investment. The company is called Lumo. Yeah, there's a new player in the rail sector in England now. So I'm shocked that that investment is quite bullish at a time where we are complaining that people are not getting out.
Well, the people aren't getting out, and also the franchises are so closely governed. I personally wouldn't do it myself, but I can't tell investors what to do. I find it rather strange. I don't think it's the way for the future. I think that probably electric vehicles will happen before rail companies actually make any money. But I could be completely wrong. So far, all that's happened in franchises has been a lot of tears for all investors and management concerned in this country, because simply it's not big enough for big rail.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you. Adesua, we'll come straight to you this morning. Adesua Mora. Hi, Adesua. Hi, good morning. How's it going? Yeah.
Hi, Rafai.
Yeah.
Very well, thank you. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Dr. Abati. Morning. Well, let's take a look at the global statistics. According to the Johns Hopkins University, COVID-19 has killed more than 4.6 million people and infected 223 million others globally. A vast majority of those sickened by this virus have recovered. However, there are growing concerns over increasing cases of long COVID, which simply is experiencing symptoms of the virus weeks or months after recovery. Meanwhile, vaccination globally, distribution of vaccines against this virus remains unequal. Here in Nigeria, a quick look at the latest statistics. 18 states are responsible for the latest 727 infections and 7 COVID-19 related deaths. South River State posted the most infections for the day with 257 new infections, followed quickly by Lagos. Lagos saw 157 cases for the day. Now, the NCDC also reported a backlog of cases from Taraba and Edo states for the 7th and 8th of September. Now, the latest data from the vaccination agency in Nigeria, the NPHCDA, shows that an additional 98,325 people received a first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine across the country, while another 27,057 individuals got their second jab in the last 24 hours. The vaccination against COVID-19 in Nigeria is open to everyone aged 18 and above at the moment. Now, the WHO in Africa held its weekly virtual press conference yesterday, and it revealed that the weekly COVID-19 cases in Africa fell by more than 20%. That's the sharpest 7-day decline in 2 months. This is as the third wave of the virus tapers off. But Dr. Mashidiso Moeti, who is the WHO Regional Director for the continent, says due to the impact of more transmissible variants, the rate of decline is slower than we saw in the 2 previous waves. She also said that more infectious variants that partly fueled the third wave, such as the highly infectious Delta variant, has been detected in 31 countries, while the Alpha and Beta variants have been identified in 44 and 39 countries, respectively. She also said the C12 variant, initially identified in South Africa, has so far been detected in 130 cases in 10 countries, 10 countries globally, 5 of which are in Africa. And finally, she touched on the need for countries to step up their genomic sequencing. This allows you to track the pandemic and what you're dealing with exactly. Now to the U.S., where the awaited Biden 6-pronged strategy to curb the Delta variant spread was revealed yesterday. Declaring the COVID crisis the pandemic of the unvaccinated, U.S. President Joe Biden outlined his plan focusing on testing, vaccine mandates for public and private workforces, teachers, as well as large gatherings. I must say it's a very aggressive move, a mix of executive actions and federal rules to get Americans vaccinated. He says the government has been patient, but the patience is wearing thin with the unvaccinated, and that number makes up about 25% of the American population at the moment. Some 80 million Americans refusing to get the jab at the moment. Finally, to the UK, where the medical regulator has given a go-ahead for 2 vaccines, that is the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca vaccine, to be used as booster jabs. But the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, the JCVI, which is the UK's vaccine advisory body, has not decided if they are needed and who should be eligible. But it does look like we would be seeing a rollout of booster jabs in the UK before or during the winter. Guys.
Well, speaking of those booster jabs, Dame Sarah Gilbert, obviously the creator of the AstraZeneca vaccine, gave an interview to the Daily Telegraph, which is in today's paper, and really all over the British press today, talking about how the booster jabs are actually unnecessary for most people and that the immunity will last. So she's actually not saying a blanket no to booster jabs, but for the vast majority, it's unnecessary. And she feels that it will be better used in the developed world, such that all those Africa variants that are rearing their grotesque heads can be stopped in their tracks. And she makes a very good point. And I'm wondering if she'll be a more persuasive voice than Tedros Ghebreyesus, which, as I never missed the opportunity to say, has sort of lost a bit of credibility here. I haven't forgiven the WHO, I'm sorry, for their behavior at the onset of this pandemic. We did not need to be here 18 months later if they had behaved as they ought to have behaved, and that's why I keep going on about it. I need to forgive them at some point, but not quite yet. Anyway, she has a lot more credibility. What do you think of that? And also in that interview, she was expressing some exasperation with people saying that the vaccines were developed so quickly, which is part of the distrust a lot of people that Joe Biden was referring to will feel, that they feel that the vaccine is somewhat sinister.
And I think, you know, when this pandemic is all over, whenever that will be, Tundu, there will be enough blames to go around, not just the WHO. We also had governments who did not take responsibility. We had people who did not report what they were seeing. They were cover-up. So there's enough blame to go around. But it's also the points that the WHO has made that the blanket use of booster jabs is totally unnecessary because there's no data to prove that yet. However, the WHO at some point said perhaps the immunocompromised people, the elderly people, the very young people, those who have had transplants may need booster jabs. We also recall that since the development of vaccines, we learn as we go ahead. We have not seen enough time to say these vaccines can last forever. So we're going along with the times. And as it is at the moment, some countries who have led with this vaccination rollout have seen that in some people, especially the elderly and the immunocompromised people, immunity wanes over time. And that's why those category of people should need and should take booster jabs. However, for a blanket use of the entire population, no data is yet to support that.
You're right, Adeswa, in the sense that there's more than one villain in this piece, but governments will do what governments do, and that's really protect their own interests. I expected a lot more from the WHO.
Well, what should be noted is that in the United Kingdom, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Authority has already said that the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine and also the AstraZeneca vaccine can be taken as booster jabs, and not just for immunosuppressed persons. I think a position had been taken on that before now, but also for the general population. And by next week, the UK had planned to roll out about 35 million doses to vaccinate, the elderly and immunosuppressed persons. But for the general population, what is in place is that the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, the JCVI, will have to give its approval. But opinion is divided with regard to this. There are 3 MPs who are saying no, you should give it more to the people who are in need of help. Then you have AstraZeneca executives, more or less Professor Sarah Gilbert, who is the lead scientist for the AstraZeneca vaccine, is saying no. We don't think that there is a need for it. And they're asking for more evidence. And then you place alongside the position of the WHO. And I think it was 2 days ago or so that we said, well, countries are not likely to listen to the WHO because in this vaccination program, there's politics involved. There's international diplomacy involved. There is selfishness involved. Now, contrast that with the very active statements, executive orders, mandates rolled out by the U.S. President Joe Biden yesterday. This is the second time he will be doing that since he assumed office, but he has gone a step further. What we have now been told is that, look, schools, teachers under the federal plan must all be vaccinated. Companies, private companies, must ensure that there is weekly testing of their workers. We've also been told that all health workers must be vaccinated. And persons who make use of federal land, federal transportation, airlines, or any form of transportation must wear the mask. And if they do not wear the mask, they will be doubly sanctioned. So this is a case of the President of the United States who is wielding the big stick. And we have also been told that federal workers, including contractors, that he included in the mandate that he issued before now, if they do not wear the mask, if they do not comply with the guidelines, They will be invited for counseling and discipline. And the discipline will include termination of appointment or termination of contract. And where is President Biden coming from? He's saying, yes, it is true. About 200 million Americans have been vaccinated, but there is a 25%. About 80 million people who have not been vaccinated and who do not want to be vaccinated. So his statement yesterday was an attack on the anti-vaccine movement. But the question is, would this lead to litigation? Because the Federation of National Workers, they are saying that this is an abuse of their fundamental rights. Okay? The unions are protesting. The U.S. Medical Association says this is a good move. Okay? But what is likely to happen? Are we going to have the same situation as we have in Florida, where the Republican governor, DeSantis, has been taken to court, and a county judge has already ruled that the state has no powers, to cancel the preference of parents that children must wear masks when they are in school. But where President Biden is coming from is understandable, because he says that skeptical, cynical 25% is posing a threat to the rest of the country. I understand we've run out of time. There are other things to talk about, but let's leave it there.